Well, I think a big part of the pitch has been if we don't build these projects, we're going to reduce CO2 emissions. If that was the case, I'd be opposed to the projects. But we're not reducing CO2 emissions one bit.
No, you're
We're displacing them to other parts of the world where standards are not near as high. You know, already today, our oil energy in Eastern Canada is imported from other places which don't have nearly the standards we do.
And they have no carbon tax.
Why? They have no carbon tax. Why do we find that acceptable? I'm looking for the politician who stands up and says, we are a world leader in developing resources. The rest of the world needs our resources. We're going to do it to the highest environmental standards in the world. We're going to do it with full Indigenous consultation, and we're going to develop them. As an example, I read 2 weeks ago that India announced that they're building a $60 billion natural gas pipeline network. $60 billion, and they're going to do it in the next 4 years. $60 billion. And because they're trying to get off coal. We all know what happened 2 weeks ago in New Delhi. They had to shut the airport down, schools down because they couldn't land airplanes because they have so much smog. They want cleaner energy. So they're going to develop a $60 billion pipeline network. If only, Rex, I could think of a country that could provide India with clean, responsible LNG to fill those pipelines. If you think of that country, you let me know. Why don't we have a national leader who stands up and says, we are going to have an opportunity for Canada here, and we're going to help India lead a better life. They looked upon the Canadian energy industry, and still do today, as the gold standard of performance, operationally, environmentally. So being Canadian was a huge advantage virtually everywhere we went in the world.
So you have no embarrassments about being in the oil industry?
Not at all. Very proud of it.
Now that brings up to a really, really big point. How comes it then that there has been something almost of a world campaign that has put Canadian energy in the minds of investors outside, or in contrast with other countries, or in the ability to get projects done? How do you go from such a professionally run and necessary industry to it being, you know, the pariah dog of half the globe?
Well, I wouldn't agree it's the pariah dog of half the globe. I would say in Canada, the industry has been very successfully vilified. And you go places, and as soon as you mention you're in oil and gas, people, oh my God, you know, how can you live with yourself? I'll give you a quick story. When we opened up our office in London, England in 1997, so this is 20 years ago now, 20 years plus, I phoned up on a Monday morning the Deputy Minister of Energy, because I thought, we're going to be busy here, I should introduce myself, who we are. I want to thank you for letting me barge in like this. So I call you Monday morning, here I am Monday afternoon. And he said, well, you had me as soon as you told me you were from Calgary, Alberta. He said, I worked for the Department of Industry, which is what it was called at the time, when we discovered oil in the North Sea. And he said, we had no clue what to do. We had no oil and gas industry here. We had no clue what to do. So we looked around the world and we said, where's the best area, the best area for developing and regulating oil and gas development responsibly? And he said, my colleagues and I ended up spending 6 months in Calgary, Alberta at the ERCB, which is now the Alberta Energy Regulator. He said, we based our regulations on what you do in Alberta. You're the best in the world. Jeez. And I thought, why do I have to go to London to hear that? And at home, you get vilified. I'd say our opponents to our industry have been very successful, and a little bit of looking in the mirror. I think the energy industry has done an extremely poor job of communicating. The bottom billion use 1 barrel, and most of that comes from wood and cow dung. As your energy consumption decreases, your quality of life decreases, your life expectancy decreases, your education decreases,
your respect for the environment decreases.
Your respect for the environment decreases, and your chance of dying from respiratory failure increases dramatically because you're burning cruder and cruder energy. We need to get this world energy. No one is better at it than Canadians. We should be the provider for the world. And I am a huge believer in addressing climate change and having a lower emissions future. But oil and gas is part of that. There's no such thing as a no carbon future, and Canada is part of that. I believe in climate change, and I believe we have to address it. Canada as a country, we're 1.6% of global CO2 emissions, 1.6. So if we shut the country down, and I don't mean the energy industry, I mean the country. We don't drive anymore, we don't heat our homes, we don't mine, we don't produce airplanes, we don't produce steel, we stop breathing. We're going to reduce global emissions by 1.6%. That's not to say we shouldn't reduce, but how much are we willing to impale this country? But if that plan comes to pass, the people that should be really worried are in Ontario, because think of the
Yes.
auto manufacturing and parts manufacturing business in Bombardier in Quebec. If we go off oil and gas, they're shut down. I mean, talk about a national crisis. The whole country's going to suffer. I care about this country as much as anybody else. Yeah. I care about the environment as much as anybody else. My wife and I, we spend our holidays, we don't go on cruises, we don't go on golf junkets, we go cycling, we go canoeing, we go backpacking. That's what we like to do.
We join Leonardo DiCaprio on his
yacht.
Yeah,
Exactly. I have yet to meet a reporter on any one of those trips, but I care about the environment as much as any other Canadian. But that's why I think it's important to get people out there. Yeah. It's really easy to vilify an industry. It's far away. They're bad. We're good. Yeah. It's much more difficult when you put a person out there. I think people's view of the average oil worker is drill baby drill. Who cares? I love going out to the field. Our operations are just southwest of Grand Prairie. I love going out to the field and meeting our operators and the rig crews. They care. Yeah. They live there. You think they're going to destroy it? They live there. And I go out there and they tell me, "Oh, Chris, look what we've done here. We've done this, and we've reduced emissions here." And they're so proud and enthusiastic of what they do. Well, and it's ironic that the leader in emission reductions has been the United States. Yes. Who are taking great grief because they're pulling out of Paris. Oh my God, they're responsible.
They have no carbon tax?
They have no carbon tax. They've actually led the world because they found gas in abundant, cheap quantities and displaced coal. What a good idea. We've had such an irrational conversation for 20 years. Energy versus the environment, big fight, lots of name calling.
Yeah, I'm good at name calling.
But I kind of look upon it, and I've never taken a survey, but there's probably 10% of the population that are ideologically opposed to really any kind of energy. That's it. And they're really not worth talking to because they're so ideologically opposed. And similarly, there's probably 10% on the other side who don't want to talk about the issues. But the 80% of people in between may lean one way or the other, but they're rational, intelligent, people who want to be informed. Let's have a rational conversation.